Hey guys, welcome to ESL TV for day number 3. Yes, day number 3 we are at right now. We've had a few changes in terms of schedule. I'm blowing my own eardrums out at the moment. As you may have noticed from Twitter, someone sabotaged our mixer overnight. Not sure exactly who that was, but don't worry, I'll find him and I'll kill him after the show today. But we are about ready to start off with our first game of the day, and it's going to be a rematch between KMT and STO. I was going to have a go at saying the name, but now I've just decided, you know what, I'm not going to say it anymore because it's a load of French words, and as an Englishman, I can't. So yeah, KMT versus Salade de Tomate Oignon. Yeah,
so Spanish, obviously.
Spanish, Italian, there's all kinds of different ways to say it, apparently.
Continental.
Yeah, everything that comes out of an English guy's mouth that's supposed to be not English sounds something other than it should be. Let's have a quick look at the overview right now and see how things are going, because I'm sure you guys have lost a little bit of touch as to what's been going on because of the changes that we've had here today. But hopefully, fingers crossed, not to jinx it or anything, we should be good today. So the Copenhagen Wolves are sitting pretty atop, 3-0, pretty much qualified right now at this point. Super Hot Crew at 2-0, yet to lose a game. TCM are 2-1. Then the bottom 3 who really need to do some work today, especially KMT and STO. KMT are at 0-1. STO at 0-2. Caronte, unfortunately for them, lost all their games so far, sat at 0-3. And as such, our first game will be KMT versus STO. It's going to be a complete regame, even though they played, I think, 20 minutes or so of yesterday's games.
Significant way in, and actually quite a significant advantage as well.
Yeah. But that because of the rules, you know, I'm not an admin. I'm not 100% sure as to know how that's all worked out there. We've got other guys that are more competent at that kind of stuff to figure that out. It's going to be a complete regame with new bans and picks as well. So we can see how this one goes. Just going to say, ready? You can go, because the guys have been waiting for us here. We're actually playing on the Russian server today, which is a bit of a change to things, but we're hoping that you know, the whole stability problems that we've been having over the last couple of days will be rectified by this little change that we've got going on. KMT, I'm assuming that they've now got themselves home. Obviously, yesterday they were playing at the ESL Pro Series Poland finals, where they won. That's why we had to wait for them to start off their game, because they were still doing the prize ceremony as they were due to play for this one. But I think they've now got themselves home and should be feeling a lot more confident. And honestly, they've only played one game up until now, so it's hard to really say where KMT are going to end up in all of this.
Yeah, and it's also difficult to put STO down either, because yes, they haven't yet won a game, but they're also the team that pushed Copenhagen Wolves the furthest. They are running unconventional champions. They're quite an unpredictable one, I think. Yorick jungle, not something you see very often in EU. You'd apparently see it sometimes in China, but they're certainly willing to push the boat out, and even if we could say anything about KMT, it wouldn't necessarily say how they were going to do against STO individually anyway.
Yeah, and with a whole night to sleep on things, especially from STO's side, they were behind in that game. You could say, fortunately for them, I think, because it looked like they were on that slow path to losing, the way that we actually ended with the pauses and what have you. They've had the chance to sleep over it. They've had the chance to talk about, you know, what went wrong for them there and how they're going to change it and approach today's game against KMT. And I think the whole new bans and picks might swing things a little bit. Whether we'll see a jungle Yorick ban, I'm not quite so sure. But
it was banned yesterday, and you actually quite often see that in full tournaments that have a losers bracket. You often see losers bracket teams that have been put in that situation, have been forced back on their heels, have been losing games, actually then come back around, and they can come back in straight up against the same team that beat them before and just sweep them away, because they're the ones who've actually been put under pressure and now feel that they need to do something. Whereas it's easy if you were winning, if you're the team that thinks, well, we beat them before, it was fine, we'll just do it again. It's easy to get complacent like that, and that can really, really screw you.
Well, we're actually just waiting for Vander, who apparently went to the toilet a minute ago. We're which is actually now almost 5 minutes ago. So hopefully he's getting himself back in shape, and we'll be back ready to go here in just a second. But we've got a long day of action for you tonight, guys. Or tonight, I say tonight. It is, of course,
probably will be by the end.
3 o'clock in the afternoon. Could well be 3 o'clock in the morning by the time we're finished. Not to jinx anything already. Touch wood. Not sure if this is actually made out of wood. It is. It's wood. It's wood. It's all good. Yeah, it's wood underneath the plastic, I think. So that's all good. But yeah, 8 games we've got scheduled for you today. Now, I actually was talking to the admins about the possibility of, once we have the definite 3 teams qualified, do we stop playing there, or how that is all going to work out? And what I was told from that was that no, actually we'll play out all the games, despite whether they mean anything really or not, because in case any team drops out for whatever reason, whether it's through illness or disqualification or whatever, then we still need the bottom 3 teams seeded, because they will, of course, then make the jump up into the next spots and replace anyone there, possibly. No
one's getting out of here tonight.
Good luck, have fun. Yeah, they're awaiting admin confirmation, which I was put in charge here by our admin Dave. They said listen to Joe, and then we're good. And we are going to get into bans and picks, so apparently they accepted that statement from things, and we are going to be able to kick this one off. I'm just going to have to do a little bit of readjusting here.
Oh dear.
This is not going to go well.
Live surgery on the overlay.
I'm getting there.
Nearly.
I'm getting there.
So.
Get in there.
One more bit. Oh, you ruined it. Joe, no pressure. No.
I think that's about as close as I'm getting it, so I'm happy with that one. Producer Tim, are we happy with that one? 1 pixel. Really? 1 pixel higher? The thing is... Yeah, see, now it's all...
One down.
That's it. Okay, we're good. Producer Tim's happy. We're all happy. If you want to flame him, blame him on the Twitch chat. QUN, that's the nickname that you need to abuse him on. But yeah, the band's coming out here, and pretty quickly as well. Nidalee Olaf taken away by STO, and there is that Yorick ban that we were talking about, along with a Kassadin ban for KMT.
But also interesting here is the Olaf ban that was being played against them last night, and that is a very important pick. They were running that, I think, quite effectively. He was kind of being camped severely and yet still being an extremely relevant threat. So maybe, whereas before they saw the Olaf possibility when they were choosing their picks and bans, and they thought, well, we can just camp that. They actually got themselves Evelyn jungle, and they literally dived him as he walked back to his lane, having just been dived. Yeah. But he was 0-3, then he was in a team fight, and then he was like 2-3, and also just destroying them. So
yeah, banning
that out, understandable, all things considered.
Well, the other final bans here were Gragas for STO and Annie taken away there. That left Shyvana open, and STO didn't waste any time in getting that one locked straight in there.
Yeah, she's a very high priority pick for everyone at the moment, because she has kind of the dual strengths of being a flexible character. You can run her in the jungle and you can run her in top lane, and also being best of class in both of those roles. So if you let her through, she's gonna get picked by someone, is pretty much how it works at the moment.
She is incredibly strong, there's no doubt about that one. And we're seeing her being run worldwide at this point. I mean, we have these champions that seem to come in certain areas but not in others, but Shyvana right now is definitely a worldwide pick. On the other side, it looks like we could be seeing the Evelyn come in here, along with Caitlyn that's already now locked in. So Evelyn, Caitlyn, first picks here for KMT.
Well, KMT do like to run Caitlyn, so they're prioritizing that pick quite a lot, but the Evelyn jungle slipping through again. Both of the teams actually not valuing it as much as some of the other teams that we've seen, I think thus far. Evelyn, up until this game, which is now happening for the second time, have had it under 100% ban, I believe. So wouldn't be surprising if that becomes a very powerful pick, but there is the counter that we actually saw them attempting last night, which was the Elise pick as the jungler against Evelyn. Do a lot of invading and do a lot of counter ganking, and it can still work out against Eve because she is not as strong as Elise in a duel.
Well, we'll see now what STO complement this Shyvana with. Obviously, Shyvana was an easy choice, so that didn't really take them much time to lock in, but the second and third pick seems to be taking them a little bit longer. But it looks like we will be seeing a Lucian Leona pick up for STO.
Okay, so that is basically saying we want to kill whoever's in this lane. Whether that's a 2-on-1 lane or whether that's a 2-on-2, that level of burst damage between the two of those characters pretty much as you could get from an AD carry and a support together. So really, really scary stuff. Caitlyn, if she ends up in a 2-on-2 lane, can play the kite away game, but if she makes even one mistake, or if the jungler comes in to set up and force away the flash, it curtains for her basically at that point. So also actually gives them the potential for pushing, because one of the things that was sort of noted before is that if you run Relic Shield on Leona, which is a very common choice for her, health is a very good stat, it actually now makes her a much, much stronger pusher than she used to be on the previous patch, because she can just give minions when they're below, I think it's about half health, and that really does push your lane very, very quickly, which also gives you the level advantage over whoever you're against in the lane. So that is a really good pick, and I do like to see that.
So on the other side here, Renekton, who is another very highly contested champion at this point, along with Thresh as well. We kind of touched on the whole Thresh versus Leona thing yesterday about the fact that you can flay back the Zenith Blade.
Yeah, if you flay back the Zenith Blade while Leona is in flight, as it were, it will stop her. She will not be able to follow up with the stun. It likely puts her out of range if she has activated her W for the damage from the Eclipse. That being said, very, very difficult to do, and if he, for instance, wastes that flay cooldown, it both roots him in place while he's casting it for, only 0.2 seconds, but that's long enough for Leona to get in range to then Zenith Blade him. And Thresh nowadays is not massively tanky until sort of later on. He will generally build very tanky, but he doesn't scale up to be very, very tanky very, very early on. The soul mechanic was flattened out a little bit a while ago, and with the shield, it's not really enough to save him at this stage.
Well, I'll be honest here, I wasn't expecting the 4th and 5th picks from STO, going for Nautilus and Kha'Zix, which leaves me to believe that we're going to have Kha'Zix in the mid or top lane. I suppose they can switch around him and Shyvana as they wish, with Nautilus in the jungle. Nautilus has had a little bit of a change as well this patch. Basically a bit of a boost to his late game is what Riot pinned that down as.
Yeah, Nautilus has always been... He's a slow starter. That's his biggest issue. However, if you are running against Evelynn, he's likely to get a good start just because she isn't a particularly strong duelist. You won't invade him. However, picking Nautilus in this situation does mean now that if they aren't able to get Nautilus in position to counter gank, they're going to have to make a huge number of ganks themselves work. And that's going to be very, very difficult with the greater prevalence of the wards, thanks to the trinkets. Just generally makes it a very difficult thing to maneuver. That being said, with the Nautilus' ability to lane gank very effectively, he can camp bottom lane or top lane very effectively. Also, the Kha'Zix pick, interesting to see it essentially blind picked. They didn't know what he'd be going up against if they're running that mid lane, and Shyvana mid is also a very strange choice. But I believe Spontex is very skilled on Kha'Zix. He is really absolutely top tier on that champion, so he may just feel confident. But going up against Kayle in mid is a really, really tall order. And
also an interesting one that, Evelynn, while she does have a great ability to chase, doesn't have really anything to lock you down, and having the speed of Shyvana plus the jump from Kha'Zix allows a little bit of safety in that lane should Evelynn actually get into that. So some interesting choices. This one, final pick was actually Kayle for KMT, which Overpower has actually played a lot over the past years. I'm still not the biggest fan of Kayle, I have to admit, but she has her strengths.
She bullies anyone with a melee auto attack who wants to farm that way. She will just hit you with Reckoning, slow you down, which also does quite a big chunk of damage. That ability scales up very hard, very early, and just using that E, get multiple auto attacks off, and that shreds anyone in the early game. It's a bit of a... just generally strong at all times, but especially early on, Kayle's damage is very, very high. However, in so doing, she is going to push the lane. She auto-attacks the enemy, the minions aggro on her, therefore they aren't hitting the minions, and the minions will push them back. Also, there is an AoE aspect to E, and if she has activated that, then she wants to farm a minion. She actually has no choice but to AoE down the wave a little bit, so Kayle inevitably pushes in that kind of lane. And that's dangerous because Kha'Zix is very good at setting up ganks, so is Nautilus. Both of them together could well get a lot of stuff done there.
Well, I just want to remind you guys that obviously we are in the group stage of the promotion for the next LCS season in 2014, and 3 teams from this qualifier are going to go to basically play here in Cologne, and you guys can still get involved in that. There are still tickets available. If you head over to lolesports.com, you can find out exactly how to get your hands on them. I think they're €10 a day, if my mind serves correctly, and also the Battle of the Atlantic games are taking place on those days as well. So if you're in and around Cologne, definitely something that you want to be checking out.
Yeah, really, really interesting games. Between the two of them, arguably, the Battle of the Atlantic may feature quote unquote better teams, but I'd say this kind of thing is almost more important in how it's going to determine the way things are going to go for the next, well, next entire season, in fact, at this point. So you can't really choose between them at that point, actually.
Well, I think the Battle of the Atlantic guys, yeah, they're playing for, you know, pride and what have you, but if you look at the promotion tournament, those guys are fighting for literally their lifestyle and their job at that stage of things. And the way that's going to work, of course, with NIP having the high seed, they get to choose which team they want to play up against. So basically, they're going to choose not to play against the Copenhagen Wolves, is what we've seen over the last few weeks. SK will then have second choice. Meet Your Makers will then be left with what's left on the table, which, you know, if you look at any kind of predictions and analysis out there, pretty much everyone is expecting a Copenhagen Wolves Meet Your Makers matchup.
Yeah, it's one we've seen a couple of times in the past, but Copenhagen Wolves have generally been coming out on top in that matchup from what we've seen recently, and indeed actually pretty much since MYM was removed from the LCS proper, as it were. So you know, I wouldn't count them out at any point.
No. One thing about MYM is that if you look at how they came into the summer split after having failed to qualify for spring, is that they had a lot of time to work teams out and to really study them. And that went really well for them. Their start to the summer LCS split was incredibly strong because they'd had that time to really nail down what their opponents were going to be doing and how they were going to go about these first games. And you know, sadly for them, as teams adapted and got themselves accustomed to playing against the teleport in the mid lane and you know, how MYM were going to be playing against them, then it went downhill from there. But the fact that they've had kind of a quiet time now where they've not really played anywhere, they've not shown too much, they're probably going to come out with something new.
Yeah, that's one of the things, because the challenger teams that are having to work their way in, they're going to be getting used to playing safely. They're going to be getting used to playing games where there's a lot riding on it, where they are expected maybe to come out on top in the case of Copenhagen Wolves, but where they're always vulnerable to cheeses and stuff like this best of one. So they're getting very much into a play style on the new patch, and they won't necessarily have time to think of the very most sort of interesting cheese strategies that could come out, or even just play style choices. Like you say, teleport in mid lane, that's not a cheese, that's just a strategy.
That's just a thing that they liked to do. And like to do a lot as well. I just need to change a couple of things here because obviously we are on a different client, but it actually looks like everything is good. And I
screen's doing something very strange.
Yeah, I think it just changed your video resolution for a while, just because it can. So let's get into game then and figure out exactly how this one is all gonna go down. It's STO versus KMT. We do have game sounds in there. I was just about to question producer Tim on that front, but it's apparently he's on the ball today here for that one. So we are underway with this, and it looks like it will be Spontex in that mid lane. Obviously too early to really call where these lanes are going to be coming off, but interested to see how Jankos goes about this start and whether KMT are going to try anything risky. As I said, they've played only one game so far in this promotion group stage. Now, one game that was a loss in the end definitely is not going to shape how their entire group stage goes, but they also have to be really careful that they don't lose any more. I think this is a must-win game for them.
Yeah, at this point, you don't want to get into the situation that Coronte are in. 3 games down, it's no longer in their hands if they win. Even if they won all the rest of the games, they still have a very low chance of actually qualifying at this point, and that just puts you I mean, it ruins your whole mindset for the actual games as well. So it's really, really not an ideal situation. But you know, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. It does look like we're actually going to be seeing a 2v1 swap up and actually a late invade here.
Yeah, late invade coming in, and STO, you can see they're actually sat back from this one, just waiting until they were spotted out, and Gob actually going very deep, did get hooked in there by Thresh, and he's gone very low, he's forced to flash away. They decide not to follow through with flashes of their own. Actually, Vander did flash, I tell a lie for that one, but that leaves KMT here to be picking up the enemy blue buff. Now, the interesting thing about this is how Airwax is going to really respond to it. He's headed down to the bottom side of his jungle, but they're going to have to secure the enemy blue buff here if they don't want to lose out on the buff count early on.
But that's a very difficult thing to do when it's not actually there. Renekton has already taken it away.
You're right. I mean, I did this and drew a little circle around nothing that's there. You're right. Renekton did take that one. So that means that there is no blue buff, so the kind of fortune telling that I was going for there turns out to be true anyway, since Renekton stole that one away. Red buff did go over to Airwax, and I don't think, or they will see that now that Renekton is back in lane, that blue buff has of course gone, but that's going to be an early disappointment for STO.
It's a nice way of taking advantage of the fact that Nautilus is so weak early, even though Eve herself is also weak. The 2v1 swap up has enabled them to go for that late invade and given them a real chance of just pushing back. The other effect that this is having, of course, is that Nautilus is going to be very slow to hit level 3. Nautilus cannot gank before level 3, and even if he is going to gank at level 3, that does mean sacrificing a lot of his clearing potential with the level 2 shield that he isn't getting. So now Nautilus is in an awkward spot, and it looks like he's actually going to have to recall before he even hits 3.
And not probably good news here for STO. And we saw there that Overpower bullying Spontex in this mid lane. Spontex starting out with that crystalline flask, but he's scared of moving in. And actually, he's going to jump over onto Overpower, but I'm not sure that's the best idea, and he has to flash away. The Ignite came down onto him, and that was a very risky move. Down in the bottom also, we did see Evelyn start to come into that lane, but Yuki and Kuja not really losing too much. But Spontex, I think, miscalculated the damage output there a little.
It's a very tempting thing to do as Kha'Zix, because Kale there was actually isolated. They are going in.
They are going in for this one. I don't think they're going to be able to lock it down, and we see that there with Yuki able to just back away. And as we kind of predicted here from the Leonas that we've been seeing so far, the Relic Shield start coming out, the Ancient Coin on the other side, pretty much as most supports have been going for. Certainly the range supports, obviously, with the way that the Relic Shield works now.
Yeah, generally, if you can get that execute proc, that's really strong. But the big point at the moment is, are they going to push this in? Because STO are actually in a situation where they have backup, and I feel like KMT are kind of calling this. They know that there is the potential for a bait, but are they going to go for a 4-man on 2-man dive at level 4? That seems very risky, and KMT will know about that. They'll know that Kha'Zix has gone, and he's been gone for a long time now.
Yeah, and that's probably bad news as well for Spontex, because he was forced out of that lane earlier on. Of course, we see there that they've just gone up, both Airwax and Spontex, into the enemy jungle, just trying to look for anything to go with there. That didn't quite work out for them. Spontex comes back into lane and just get blasted straight away by Overpower, who now got that amp tone in there, got himself some boots as well. He'll be feeling a lot more confident. Yeah,
that was actually a little bit of an exchange in the bot lane, but Jankos going quite low, having to use his flash, but burning the Ignite from Kuja, which will make Xaxus' job actually significantly easier if he goes in again.
Yeah, and we saw that Yuki, he falls low as well. Xaxus is up at full HP at this point, so he won't be too scared about diving in and getting involved from this one, especially since he has a flash to either follow in or getting himself out of any danger straight after that in the top lane as well. Shyvana just coming around, Nautilus coming around to help Shyvana, as it actually is a Flay coming in onto Airwax, and he's actually going to have to flash away from that one, and that leaves God now to take the damage as well. And KMT across the map doing an incredible job of keeping the pressure up.
Yeah, they have strong lanes, and because Nautilus is so far behind at the moment, or was forced behind so much early on, that's given them pretty much freedom to do whatever they want. Evelyn spending so much time in the bottom lane, it's not costing them very much, because Nautilus, they know he's basically, or was basically, trapped farming his own jungle. He's starting to catch up now though, so can he actually make some ground back up in terms of the map pressure.
Well, he is hanging around this top lane. Obviously wants to stop any kind of fast takedown on that tower. None of them go down up until now, but we have throughout this tournament already seen some very, very fast turrets as he gets away from the dredge line there. Celiva using that 90 caliber net at the perfect time. Make sure that he's safe on that front, and he shouldn't have too many problems with this one. Actually, Gob getting hooked out, it's going to mean that he takes a little bit more damage than he probably would have calculated there.
Yeah, they don't want to take too much poke down at this point because KMT, they have Evelyn actually in the area right now. Renekton is obviously having to cower behind his tower for now. And at the moment, STO are okay, but they've actually gotten the hook.
Yeah, hook coming into them there, but I'm not sure if they're going to be able to follow through with this one. They're losing a lot of health in this entire time. We saw Jankos actually picking up the enemy blue buff, so second spawning of that one, STO lose out. Now the question is, can they react fast enough? Nautilus is just recalled, blue buff is up on this side of the map, but you'd have to expect that Kale is going to come down and make sure that that one is secure.
Yeah, and at the moment, KMT have a stronger fight in that area as well because Xaxis is level 6. Dominus in those kind of situations is such a strong ability that it can actually outweigh the fact that there's a 2v1 lane down there. In addition to the fact that Nautilus having had to recall there is not going to be able to get there in a decent amount of time, and they don't actually know necessarily, actually no, they have got a ward on it, so they will actually know when they start trying to take it.
Will they be able to steal? Airwax was just making sure that Overpower didn't put too much damage down onto this middle turret, and he's going to go back and start his red buff, which honestly allows this time to come down for the blue. You can see that Jankos decided to just move over the top of that one. And we'll see if he can get in a position to actually start anything off. He's level 6 now, so as his ultimate available, should he actually come down and start this fight off? And he looks like he is trying to get into that one.
Yeah, it's a scary situation, but he's deciding against it and is actually now showing that he was down there, which will mean STO will be quite happy to know that. But they are now going to be able to recall, recall is not the word I was looking for there, move away from the lane and get the double golems. But I think I want to note right now, look at the difference in the mid lane CS Joe. Not convinced by Kale, but she does such a good job against Kha'Zix.
And we just saw that blue buff being tanked up for a very long time by Jankos. Actually, we saw Vander throw out his lantern to get in there a little bit quicker because Jankos was starting to fall very, very low. He's just done himself the wolves, and actually he's going to head off here and pick him up that final camp on this bottom side of the map. So again, both blue buffs going over to KMT, and it looks like Airwax now trying to get in and make a bit of a move on middle, but Overpower just waiting it out there with the dredge line and just dodges it in the end. Brilliant play, but they may lose their red buff here.
Well, if Airwax goes for the red buff now, he was actually in a choice situation there. He could either choose to take advantage of the fact he knew Evelyn had gone back and go for the red buff, or he could go for that gank. He thought he could make it work, it didn't. That is unfortunate for him, and it means he can't really contest the red buff now, because a straight 2-on-2 with Kale is already incredibly difficult if you're only equal with her. If she is ahead of you, that makes it even scarier, but he is now going to be seeing if he can make anything happen up top.
Yeah, there is the ultimate coming out. Box goes down, but look at Vander. He's taking a lot of damage. Celiva really low from this one as well. Vander is going to go down, but can Celiva actually pick up the kill here onto Gob? He's taking a lot of damage, but he flashes there. They might be able to get both of them from this. No, Celiva goes down to Gob. There is the kill back, and, well, Airwax, they started to chase him in, and that was nicely played micro-wise coming out of Celiva. Disappointed, though, to lose both of them in the end. But either way, Overpower here is doing a good job as well in this mid lane. He's already taken down that turret extremely low. Should be able to finish it here with this wave.
Yeah, he's going to deny as many CS as he can. He knows Kha'Zix isn't going to be able to get back into the lane for a while, because at the moment, on this kind of health, if Kha'Zix stayed in, he would just straight up dive him, use his ult to tank the tower, and he would not care. That would just be easy kill there for him. So he's just going to see if he can get that caster creep to take it out. But Dominus in bot lane.
And the tower survives after all that. There is Yuki here taking a lot of damage, and Xaxis just running straight in on him for this one. There is the Culling coming down. Xaxis decides he's going to back away, takes the lantern as well. What we just see there, that's a 2 versus 1 with everything thrown at them. And Xaxis is monstrous at this point.
That's what Renekton does, and that's one of the things that he does better than Shyvana, even though Shyvana does a very, very similar role and job as him. He can gap close, and that is really crucial in 2v1 situations. When he's ahead like this, or where you would normally expect him to be, it means he can gap close solo and do a bit of damage and then get back out again. Shyvana, if she tries something like that, she has to either go in with her ultimate, or she has to just run at them, in which case, I mean, imagine just trying to run against Thresh right now. She just gets flayed back, she gets hooked, she just takes a ton of poke, and can't actually get down in position to use that AoE magic damage she has.
So we see, I thought they were going to have a bit of a dragon attempt there actually, but in the end, Jankos moved back away and up towards the wolf camps. Just going to get himself a bit more farm from his side of the jungle. Meanwhile, Overpower, who didn't quite finish off that tower before, 59 HP has left on it. Just one auto attack will take that one down. As I said, no dragon attempt up until now. We finally see a pink ward put down by STO. They want to make sure that they've got some kind of vision on that one as Airwax just walks straight into the brush here against Jankos. And with Overpower coming in, he's forced to flash away from it as well. And, well, it seems to me like he's not had this flash up pretty much the entire game.
Yeah, it's not a good situation either, because Nautilus does like to have his flash. It enables you to get in range for the depth charge. Nautilus is basically king of just chaining CC on top of itself, but right now there has been another hook.
Yeah, they've baited Airwax into this one. The ultimate came onto Celever, who's going to be pushed out of the fight from this, but he's actually up onto the top side of things. Jankos here taking a lot of damage, but SCO just don't have the damage to reply, and now might be forced to back away, because look at the side. Overpower is headed down towards the Tribush, and they are in a very sticky situation right now. And, well, not as sticky as I maybe thought. As KMT decided, let's not keep chasing. Celever has kind of gone low. Jankos had already recalled. But the Dragon stopped there. That pink ward hasn't been spotted either. They've been avoiding that brush. Meanwhile, up in the top lane, Gob is having a good go on Zazas, who forced to pop his Dominus there.
Yeah, not as sticky as you thought indeed, but the situation that arose there, they basically just decided that they'd rather go about taking more towers. I think they're going for that blue buff, which has just popped up and actually now has a very likely confrontation coming up just now.
Yeah, Airwax actually going to take a lot of damage here from Overpower. He's going to dredge line away, but he won't be able to escape the power that Overpower can put down. And the question now is whether Spontex can get in there and steal that blue buff. Yes, he does. He manages to get that one. Overpower using the ultimate on himself, flashed over the wall. Zazas now coming down, needs to get this stunning, but doesn't quite get it in time. Spontex picks up the kill, but here comes Jankos from the side. He's going to flash in there, picks himself up another one onto Kha'Zix, but will he be able to chase down Gob? No, he won't. It's Shyvana after all, and that will leave us at 4-3 in kills in favor of KMT.
A little bit greedy there by Overpower, though. Understandable, given how strong he feels he is right now. But the fact of the matter is, he was not able to get... he couldn't stay there and take the blue buff. It would just keep him there for too long when his own support was a little bit further away. Obviously, it is the enemy's blue buff because they're closer. They can respond to invades much more quickly than his own team there. So, a little bit unfortunate, but in the end, his death only ended up being like a 1-for-1, but he had already picked up Nautilus, and the blue buff does go to Jankos.
The red buff here being contested as well. Kuja coming around to make sure that that one isn't stolen away, because Airwax has just not really had much luck in terms of buffs so far this game. And now KMT starting out Dragon. Will they be able to finish it off this time? There is no vision whatsoever there for STO. Pink ward was taken down finally, and that will be the first Dragon of the game at 15 minutes 44 seconds coming in for KMT, who have a 3,000 gold lead. You know, they had a gold lead yesterday in the start to this game. If you weren't tuned in and not familiar with that scenario, we had to break for some server issues, and this game is actually a remake of the last one from yesterday. KMT were ahead there, and they're doing a similar thing here.
Yeah, that is possibly showing that KMT do have the number of STO, because different bans, different picks, different strategy. STO had time to go away, think about what they were going to do in this game, and yet at the moment it does feel like they are falling behind. And honestly, there isn't that much light at the end of the tunnel if they can drag this out. There isn't a huge difference between the two team compositions, but if you have some stuff like Agony's Embrace, if you have big AoE ultimates, and then you can combine that with Kayle with the ability to have either Evelyn or Renekton dive right into the back line invulnerable. That makes for really strong late game team fights, and they're able to siege towers very quickly indeed.
Wow, that was great positional play from KMT. I mean, they've spotted where the entire enemy team was pretty much, and just all gathered up around that middle area, and now they're pushing for an inner turret on the top lane as well, and they are starting to move over here, STO, but I fear it might be a little bit late for them.
Yeah, and they're quite weak at the moment. I mean, look at Airwax in particular for how squishy he is for a tank character. He is not going to be able to take much damage, and Overpower at the moment with that Nash's Tooth completed is absolutely shredding through anyone. He's a little bit less bursty than a very, very fed mid-mage would normally expect to be. He does have a decent chunk of damage at the start of his combo, and if he just is left to keep auto-attacking, which at the moment he probably will because he's almost always going to be left alone on the back line, he outputs more damage than almost any other character could do at this stage of the game.
I'm interested to see if we get to... the thing about Kayle is the ultimate is a game-changing ultimate as well. We often forget that, and we talk about the fact that Kayle, damage, we focus on that, but that ultimate is gonna save your AD carry. You know, in times where he gets jumped on, where his positioning might not have been perfect, and changes the way that an entire fight can go. Right now, actually, STO are looking for a bit of a go on this middle turret, but they just spotted Evelyn up to the side, which I don't think Airwax was quite ready for, and they decide, you know what? We're just not in a fighting position. We're not strong enough right now. We're going to have to back away. Gob in the top lane, he's been doing a decent job of keeping up in farm with Xaxus, who had a very strong early game in terms of the farm as well. But it's this mid lane, 70 CS the difference. There's 20 CS almost the difference between the AD carries, a 30 CS difference between the junglers. And STO now starting to move down onto Dragon, but they got rid of the pink ward, but their timing's all kinds of off on that one.
Yeah, I suspect they were probably not expecting it to be up. They just wanted to make sure they got the timer on it. But because they're so far off of when it was actually taken, they are not going to be aware of when it's coming up ahead of time, which means they either have to commit a ton of wards around the map or be very aggressive somewhere else and force KMT to respond to them. But if they ever make a slip up in their map rotations, then KMT will just be like, okay, well, we will go for the dragon. We can always just break back off and send one person to do it, because it's very unlikely you can contest it if you don't know when it's coming up.
See there, the gold differences between everyone. Actually, top lane is bang on even. There's like a 4 or 5 gold difference between, and that's pretty funny to see. As Jankos is going to be getting caught out of this one. He's going to try and get away. Actually gets to the lantern, but not in time to actually save his life. Box goes down, and now the rest of KMT starting to close in. Gob going very low from this one as well. There is the ultimate out of Kuja at the back, and that will save them surely for now. But the flash in from Zaz is going to get him right into the middle of the team. They pick off Gob. A great play will knock another 2 back, and a hook onto Spontex as well. Max range. He's not going to be able to escape this one. It's a double kill for Xaxus, and 3 for 1 in the end. Okay, Jankos got caught out, but KMT were able to react to that one so quickly.
Yeah, indeed. Yuki actually was not anywhere near that fight. No. That's actually happened a couple of times now. He's been caught in situations trying desperately to keep himself up on the damage, up on the farm, and compare himself to Caitlyn. But because he isn't there, they keep losing these fights, they keep losing these objectives, and now they are a long way behind for 20 minutes into the game. Losing an inhibitor is really bad at this stage.
So this is actually really dangerous for Yuki as well, because Evelyn is chasing down and not going to have vision of him as far as I can really tell. Yuki there just getting back to the safety of his tower. The blue buff, by the way, was stolen away again by KMT. They showed some amazing cover work on that blue buff. I mean, I think there's only one that's gone over to STO up until now. And that's where Overpower, you know, was like basically 1v2ing up there, or even 1v3ing at some point. Ended up getting killed and losing that blue.
But remember, that actually ended up then getting transferred almost immediately back to Jankos, who ended up stealing it away. So, yeah, they have done some really good work. And It's that clean, clinical stuff that you see from the good teams. They constantly keep track of everything because it's so easy to let a small piece of information like that slip through, because you're concentrating on your dragon timing. You think, okay, we've got to be in position for that, we've got to be making tower pushes, but just making sure the enemy never gets a blue buff, that's important too. And KMT taking advantage of their timing that they have and their opponents do not, be getting a free dragon.
Yep, dragon is gone, and that will be another big boost for them. And if you look at the gold, it's really starting to become a problem. There's only one outer turret left in the game, and that is on less than half HP right now. I say in the game, I mean obviously from STO's side of things, there's still the top and middle outer turrets left for KMT's side of things, and they've started to get wards down now on the enemy jungle, especially around this red side of things. Vanda doing a good job on that front. Oh, he might be... needs to be careful here, though. He might just get himself caught out. Going to throw down the box. There's the ultimate coming out of Overpower, but I think they're going to lose Vanda. Zaza starts to come in, and there is the kill for Nautilus. The culling comes out. KMT start to back away from this one, but actually STO, they want to chase it, and I'm not sure it's the best way. He has Jankos going to come in from the side. Is he going to be able to burst him down? Zazas is doing a lot of damage. Yuki gets slowed. He gets finished off there by Jankos, and they might all just go down from this one. Spontex is going to be flashed onto by Jankos. One more hate spike will finish him, and that's the 3-for-1 with the support dying. And this is what I talked about. Vanda was he was in the middle of nowhere, putting wards down there. I thought, okay, he's getting caught out. Overpower's ulti kept him alive for long enough for the rest of the team to actually start to move on to him.
KL Ultimate is incredibly powerful in all situations, but especially that kind there. When you've got so much focus on one person, the value of KL Ultimate goes up because you're wasting all of their damage as opposed to however much they're focusing on that individual. But in that situation as well, STO they were so desperate to make something happen because they're trying to bring themselves back in, but they couldn't afford to do it. If they hadn't gone for it though, the slow grind most likely would have continued, and KMT thinking about a bait there, but yeah, sort of standing in minion range, a bit difficult to hide when there's that many there.
One thing they've done well here though is that Celiva, not involved in that last encounter, has actually... this mouse, it's got numbers buttons on the side, which always takes me away, which is fine in some times, but not in that one. Celiva here pushed that wave out and will actually take that inventory. But look at STO, they actually want to go for a fight here. They push them all the way back, and Overpower going low takes the Lantern to get back. Zazas manages to survive as well, but not going to be the same fate for Jankos. Is Celiva going to try and come in and mop some stuff up here? He's not. He's gone over wards as well. They might be able to close him down. Celiva knows that he's in trouble. Spots another pink ward, but this time he's not being chased. Would have been able to take that pink down, but it's going to be about defending the inner turret in this mid lane because STO is sticking around to push it.
Yeah, they knew they needed to catch on to something there, but STO, although they're taking a small advantage there, and although during that whole engagement in the bottom lane from before, Shyvana dueling Kaylin was actually taking the top tower, it's not really enough to make up for the fact they are now down, okay, not down 2 inhibs, but very likely to lose a second inhib very, very soon, and have lost 2 inhibs overall at the moment. That means they're just too far behind on map pressure now to potentially contest this Baron. KMT, I don't know if I've said these words before, they have a very fast Baron clear.
Yes, you have said those words before. We'll see if they go for that here once again. And one thing that I, again, just looking at Zazas, in those fights took so much damage. Some 5k Randuins, and if you look at where the damage comes from on the other team, then armor is pretty strong for them at this point.
Yeah, that is one of the unfortunate facts about building your team around, well, an AD mid lane. They do have decent magic damage coming out of Shyvana, but that's pretty much it. Shyvana and Leona. Nautilus also does do a bit, so they've got some. If they were ahead, if they were doing okay early game, it wouldn't be such a problem for them. But because there is so much armor, and because that is the majority of their damage, that is now really taking a significant chunk out of their potential to catch people out and to chase them down if they even manage to get the drop on someone.
Yeah, and a couple of last whispers in there, all well and good, but They only, again, chunked through so much of that armor, and if we look at Xaxus at this point, he is absolutely stacked with it. 206 armor, almost 3,000 health as well.
Yeah, he's getting to peak Bruiser Renekton at this point. He is very, very difficult to kill, and he outputs so much damage that STO cannot ignore him at all. That puts them in a very, very awkward position. They have to run away from him, but if they're doing that, they're not hitting him. If they're doing that, most likely the backline is left completely fine as well. They will continue to attack and attack and attack. You just get bled down very quickly in teamfights if that happens. Now, I would say there are still kind of some crumbs of comfort here for STO. They do have Shyvana, who can outscale Renekton, but just because there's been so much I hesitate to call it global gold anymore because it's been going dragons and things that Xaxus has been there for. But because he's significantly far ahead right now, he is strong enough to fight Shyvana one-on-one. And even if he wasn't, the map pressure situation means Shyvana can't split push safely.
Yeah, and we see that he stood right at the front of them, not scared to be tanking up any damage. And Overpower on his way here with a needlessly large rod as well. So we talked about earlier on the build that he went for obviously gives you that more sustained damage scale rather than the flat out, oh my god, you just burst me from 100 to 0. But he's also going to get to that point as well once, you know, Death Cap comes in, for example.
Kayle scales crazily. She is a really, really strong hyper carry, honestly, if she gets to a full build, especially if you consider the fact that her ultimate is so amazing. She can use it as self-peel, she can use it for other people. It just means there is another almost unignorable threat, but that one can turn invulnerable.
Oh, they managed to hook in Spontex here as well. He tries to jump away, that won't work out. Box goes down, and honestly, this is going to be a whitewash. Jankos takes a lot of damage, but there is the Kayle ultimate coming out. Yuki trying to get away, but finished over by the Piltover Peacemaker. A triple kill comes down. And honestly, KMT can win the game right here. They've only got 3 minions to do it with, but we see that Yuki leaving the game already. Xaxus is definitely tanking up to tank up that Nexus turret. And KMT gonna bounce back here and win their second game of the promotion tournament group stage, and in convincing fashion as well.
Yeah, and they beat them twice to do it, so true, they clearly deserve that. Really, really, really strong play. I feel like STO were a little bit too keen to get Spontex champions that he was comfortable on, and indeed Airwax much the same, because Nautilus really didn't work out for them. They weren't able to respond to that invade appropriately, and he fell a long way behind on that. Spontex was falling behind, and normally one or the other can support the other one and help them get back in, but when you've got two major facets of your team collapsing at once, it suddenly becomes really, really difficult to deal with.
Well, a very strong performance by KMT, and honestly, they're looking like the team that's going to challenge here for these spots. You know, I'm going to bring this up again. Obviously, not updated just yet, but I can obviously give you the overview on that one. So the Wolves 9 points, Super Hot Crew 6, TCM 6, KMT 3, and both STO and Caronte now are 0 for 3, which means that they're out. I mean, yeah. I think it's technically not impossible for them to come back if they win their next 2 games, and TCM and Super Hot Crew and KMT don't win any more games. Like, because I'm not a mathematical genius and don't have all the outcomes planned in my head, I can't exactly tell you now. But if you're 0-3 and you've got teams in there that 3 for 0, 2 for 0, 2 for 1. You're not getting through, I'm afraid. It looks like it's time game over for STO and Caronte. Our next game coming up, I'm going to see if this is actually correct anymore. I don't think it is, because STO versus KMT was our penultimate game from yesterday. Super Hot Crew versus TCM was supposed to be our last game yesterday, so I'm assuming that that is going to be our next game coming up here. Let me just quickly have a look. Trying to find it. There we go. TCM versus SHC. Yes, so that will be our game. Super Hot Crew versus TCM. That'll be coming up here in just a few minutes once we get ourselves ready and in the game. So we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with our next matchup.